I'm going to talk to you about the power of discovering yourself. And the DISC is in bold for a reason. It's not there just because I thought it looked fancy, but I am a great advocate for DISC profiling. And it's a personality profile system. There are many others. And the reason I talk about DISC is just simply it's the one I was trained in. When I did my own DISC profile, it opened the doors to discovery. It it was that thing where I went, oh, that really makes sense of a lot of my life and the way that I've operated and the way that I've done things. And that alongside subsequent realizations later on um, has really helped me with how I communicate with others and how I understand how others communicate with me too. So, I'm going to talk about the power of discovering yourself and the fact that this is about leadership of yourself, not labels. People get so worried about labels, and especially at the moment, when it comes to things like neurodivergence and all sorts of things where people go, oh, I don't want to put a label on it. But at the end of the day, we've all got labels. Labels are just a fact of life. We label people every day. People are arrogant, they're shy, they're too much, they're too exuberant, they're too detailed, and they drive you nuts because they want everything perfect and it can't be perfect and they want it perfect. And this is going to explain a lot to you of the process of how we discover who we are in this list of labels and how we can use those labels for our benefit. So I'm going to, before I start that, tell you a little bit about myself. There's some great pictures here and how they relate to these labels that we're talking about. So, who am I? I was born in Hull, and my first many years were spent on a ship. Not a nice cruise ship with a swimming pool and fancy quarters. No, we were on ro-ros generally. My dad was a captain at sea, and we would spend many days running up and down the deck of the ship and playing ball and darts and helping in the galley with the staff in there. And our longest trip was sailing to Canada. It took about 3 weeks. We were in a Force 11 storm, and it was the first time that my dad felt like he was going to potentially lose the ship, and his family were on board. So that tells you a little bit about my dad for a start. And then we go down a bit older where my mum wondered when I was ever going to get out of dresses. So I would climb trees, build fires, build dens, be in the wood in these really fancy dresses. I still don't think I have ever grown out of wearing fancy dresses. I love a fancy dress. So, and I don't mean costumes. Costumes are not my thing, but I love a dress. So I was often climbing trees and doing all the things that the boys were doing while wearing this very lacy, fancy white dress. And this particular dress, I was running around in it and I ripped it. It was very expensive from my grandma in Canada. So I was in trouble. And my other grandma had to sew it for me. And then there's a picture of me with pretty much a permanent fixture for my first 13 years was a thumb in my mouth. My mum tried many, many briberies of Care Bears and nail varnish. And the thing that got me to change that was going on a school trip where there were going to be boys sleeping on the bus with us. And I guess subconsciously, I didn't want to be sucking my thumb because all of a sudden I woke up a few weeks later and realized that I'd stopped sucking my thumb. It was not something that was planned. It just happened overnight. And then there's a picture there of me getting my degree. I've got a degree in fashion. I really did not enjoy at all. I spent 4 years doing this degree and getting that diploma. And it wasn't a fun time in life for me. And then we move on to my wedding, where I was trying to please everyone and ended up really pleasing no one, especially not myself. It was a really tough day. And there's a lovely picture of me there with my colleague in India when I was working for the ship management company. I did that for 12 years and I traveled around the world delivering training to all our different offices. And I had to learn how to communicate with different cultures and different styles of people. So I went to India, had a wonderful time. These people were so generous towards me, and they really wanted to please me. So I would ask if they knew what I was talking about, if they understood everything, and they would say yes, very emphatically. And then I would work out through body language and other indicators that they didn't actually know. They were just trying to make me feel good, which was lovely. But I then had to work out different ways of saying what I had to say so that they could understand, so that when I left India, they weren't sat there not having a clue what to do next. So it came from a place of generosity and kindness from them, and I had to work that out. And then I went to our different offices in Sweden and Germany, which the protocol there are very different. So they were very direct, straight to the point, down the line. It was a yes or no. Like there was no fluff in that position. So I had to learn how to communicate differently for all these different cultures, but also within our office. I was the middleman between our business and our IT department, our development department. And they speak very different languages. When you're speaking business and then you're speaking IT and development, they're two different things. So I was the person in the middle who was translating for each other. This is what the business needs. Oh, but this is what's possible. So I would go backwards and forwards between the two different departments, translating for them. And then I had my first child, which led to a year of postnatal depression and really fighting to get well. So that's something that I'm going to talk to you about a bit later on in my profile. But the doctor didn't really understand how depressed I was, because A, I was telling everybody that I had mild depression, and B, I was showing up every day to try and get well. And it was 3 years later when I had my second child that they then the doctor apologized to me, because they hadn't known me before that. They had no benchmark, and they said, oh my goodness, I can really tell you're a different person. But I had no idea, because they had nothing to compare me to. They didn't know the me before. They just saw the me that was trying to get well. We traveled around the country, and eventually my marriage broke down. And then I decided I needed to do something with my life. So I got all these certificates. I love a certificate. I got all these certificates, and the thing for me was I wanted to make a difference in the world. I wanted to use this love of communication, love of people, to make the world a bit better. So I went into coaching. I got my coaching diploma for personal development education. I got my neurolinguistic programming diploma. I did work on small business and corporate diplomas. And now I'm at the stage where I've been in business for a few years now. Me and Matt are running Q Branch Consulting, which is growing and growing and growing. And I've written my first book, Life's Just One Big Drama, and about all these things that have happened in my life. And then each chapter has the thing, and then it has the tool that I wish I'd known at the time to help me navigate those situations that I had. So this is a bit about me, and I'm going to explain why it's relevant a bit later on. But I think it's also good to get to know me a bit better, especially given my profile. So that's me. Who are you? We're going to do a quick DISC self-assessment, very quick. It's very, very, very basic. So you're going to read each statement, choose which one that describes you best, and then decide on A, B, C, or D, and track how many of each you have. So question 1. When making decisions, I tend to A, act quickly and take charge, B, persuade and involve others, C, take time to consider everyone's feelings, or D, analyze all details before deciding. So if you make a note of your answer. Question 2. In a team setting, I am most likely to A, take the lead and set goals, B, keep the energy high and engage people, C, support and ensure everyone feels included, D, focus on accuracy and making sure things are done right. Question 3. When faced with a challenge, I usually A, push forward and find a solution fast, B, talk it through and brainstorm ideas, C, look for a way to maintain harmony, D, research all possible options first. Question 4. My biggest strength in business is A, getting things done and achieving results, B, building relationships and influencing others, C, being patient and dependable, or D, paying attention to details and staying organized. And the final question, question 5. I prefer to work in an environment that A, is fast-paced and competitive, B, is fun, social, and collaborative, C, is stable, structured, and supportive, D, is quiet, systematic, and precise. So the results, mostly A's is a D, mostly B's is an I, mostly C's is an S, and mostly D's is a C. And this is very, very, very basic. So if you do a full DISC profile, you would get a 15-page report. So there's lots and lots of questions. It's much more detailed, but this is just to get you a general idea. And it may be that you've gone, both of those. And the thing is, we're not all day D, we're not all I, that we're generally a mix of these things. So maybe 2, occasionally 3, and also in different circumstances. So just get a general idea so that this next bit is perhaps a bit more interesting or more relevant to you. So we've got the 4 quadrants here. So D's are outgoing and task driven. I's are outgoing and people driven. C's are task driven but quite reserved. And S's are people driven but reserved. And I'm going to give you some examples of that later. But why does this matter? Because you don't want to be in a box and you don't want people to tell you that's who you are and that's it. And it's not about that. It matters because knowing how you prefer to operate enables you to embrace your strengths and make decisions on what to do with your weaknesses. So, for example, one of my weaknesses is my C is on the floor. So my detail, my spreadsheets, all of that kind of stuff is not my preference at all. So I've got 2 decisions to make there. One is, do I put my C pants on and go, right, Jenny, you're going to do some C today because this task requires organization, it requires detail, it requires you to be really, really on it, very specific. Or can I go, Matt, who's a high C, can you help me with this? This is going to be really tough for me because it's not my preference. Can you help me? You will find, it's very easy to stereotype with these things. And I will be stereotyping because it just makes it easier for you to relate to. But for example, we want an accountant generally who's got a lot of C because we want them to be detailed with our accounts. We want them to check that the numbers we've put in are correct so that when they file our tax return, everything that goes out there is absolutely accurate. You would not want me doing your tax return, I can promise you. But you might want me if you want a bit of help with influencing people, with learning how to communicate better, with feeling more invigorated, with some motivation. So that might be something you'd come to me for over somebody who's perhaps more of a C profile. And you get to choose. So you can completely ignore all of that and just go, oh, well, I'm an I, therefore I can't do D and I can't do C and I can't do S. And I will explain them all in a minute. Or you can go, they're not my preference. My preference is this, but how can I raise that skill level? It also helps knowing how you communicate allows you to choose who to communicate with. So if you know that you communicate in a particular way and you're finding it really hard to communicate with someone else who communicates differently, you get to choose what you do with that, that communication. It's not you can't avoid everybody, but what you can do is you can go, I'm not going to spend so much time with that person. A lot of our clients are C and S profiles, and we really love working with them. And we haven't really come across this, but if there was a profile that we sort of went, they're not our ideal clients, they're not the people we really want to work with, then we could just acknowledge that and go, okay, they're not for us. We haven't really come across that, but it could be the case that if you're working with particular people, you go, oh, they really rub me up the wrong way, they're not for me, then you can make those decisions because you have awareness. And then also knowing how others communicate can reduce your anxiety and feelings of being offended. How many times are you going, oh, I didn't like the way he said that. If they said that like that, I didn't like that. Why would they say that? Why would they do that? Why are they behaving in that way? Well, once you've understand DISC, you can understand all of those things, take a step back and go, it's not about me. It's about their preference. They're not even necessarily being mean or being difficult. It's just the way they prefer to communicate. And you get to go, oh, I know all about this. Therefore, I can either choose to communicate differently that suits them or respond differently, or I can choose not to have this conversation at all with that person or have business with those sorts of people. So I'm going to go through different styles. It was really interesting because I wanted a D style that wasn't a man. So most often when you put in D style personalities, it will come up with men. Well, I'm not even going to mention some of the names that came up. And then it came up with the Queen. Okay, she's not our Queen, she's not around anymore. But when she was here, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I would have put her more as an S type. But actually, I think she had to learn how to be a D. She had to be dominant. She had to be in a position of control. She had to be results and bottom line driven. I think she probably dealt with failure and loss of control quite well because she wasn't a pure D for sure. But she was dominant, she was driven, she was direct, she was decisive, she was demanding, she demanded excellence, she was determined, she was competitive, like she really loved a bit of competition, and she was assertive. So I looked at this and I was like, oh, was she really? But actually, I think she probably was. So most of the D styles that you would come across would be people like Gordon Ramsay, perhaps, or Alan Sugar, quite sort of shouty people. But that's not always the case. So Ds are really motivated by power and authority. I don't think the Queen necessarily was motivated by that, but she just understood she had to do it because that's the what do you call it? That's the card she had been dealt, and she had to take on that role, even though it wasn't necessarily maybe her natural way, but maybe it was. And we don't know. We're making guesses about all of these things. I put myself in here because I am a high I. So high Is are influencing. Their desire is to positively interact with others. We're motivated by recognition and fun. And our values to the team is that we think everything's possible. We can do it. We can. And we're going to relate to everybody. We're going to have chats. We're going to make people feel fun and understood and heard and all of those things. And our greatest fear is social rejection. So I's are influential, interactive, sociable, imaginative, trusting, optimistic, persuasive, playful, and talkative. And you will probably see that from me. I'm very talkative. The number of times people said, oh, God, Jenny, you can't talk a lot and quickly. So when I read my profile, or the very first time I'd heard about DISC, I was like, oh my God, that explains a lot about me. The other thing to note is that people always expect I's, because we're quite outgoing and chatty, that we're all going to be extroverts. But I would say that I am an ambivert who leans more to introvert. So your personality style doesn't automatically say whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. I know that I feel exhausted when I've done a day of talking and being around people. I don't feel energized. I feel quite drained, and I've got to take that time. So again, personality style isn't an exact, well, because you're an I, you're going to be great at this, and you're going to be an extrovert, and you're going to do this. And it's not about that. The next one, S styles. Again, I struggled with finding an S style to talk about. Michelle Obama's an S style. I've got Gandhi here, mainly because I felt we needed a man with an S, because again, S profiles are very much seen as more feminine profiles. Apparently, David Beckham displays as an S profile. So S's are, they like harmony. They don't really like conflict. They are the person in the office or in the family who you will go to and you'll sit and have a cup of tea. You'll come away feeling like you've had therapy. You'll feel amazing and then realize they've not really said anything. They've just sat and listened to you. So their greatest fears are loss of security and rapid change. So they'll be the one that they'll stay in the same company for decades and decades, whether they like it or not, because they don't really like change, or they don't want the insecurity of not having a job option. So they will definitely be the ones in the team that are the agony ants, the kind ones. S is a lovely profile. They're really nice people. They're peoply people. But unlike the S's, they're not all flamboyant and out there and they're very much more reserved, much quieter. So they're steady, stable, supportive, slower paced, patient, consistent, great listeners, loyal. So they're nice people to be around. And the next one, the final one in the process, is the C. And I've put our very own Q Branch Matt there because Matt is my C. He also has D in his profile, but C's are conscientious. The reason we need a Matt in our lives is because he is going to be accurate. He's going to really strive for quality, perfection. Like he will move stuff on my screen that just by 2 or 3 millimeters and it looks a lot better. So he's really about quality, order, and logic. And his greatest criticism, any C's greatest criticism, is if you are going to criticize a C, make damn sure that you have all the facts, that you tell them what's wrong and why it's wrong, and you have it all documented. If you just go in there with a criticism without any reason as to why, they are going to really be unhappy. So if you can go and say, oh, this report that you provided isn't quite right because of X, Y, Z. Oh, the way you communicated that was a little bit harsh because it came across like this. Then they might be a bit more amenable to the criticism. But if you just go in there and went, you did that wrong, they're not going to like that at all. So make sure that you have your facts ready if you are going to criticize a C. C's are generally analytical, cautious. They're careful, perfectionist, accurate, compliant, logical, competent, reserved, and thoughtful. And again, there's not to say that they can't be other things, but this is if they're pure C, and Matt C is very high, but he's also got D in his profile. So that will counteract some of the other stuff. The D with the drive and the wanting things done will sometimes override that kind of cautious, careful nature as well. So how does this help us? Firstly, once you know, you can use the information for your benefit. And what happens is lots and lots of corporate businesses use this. They get DISC profiles. I've heard it from so many people. Oh, yeah, I had my DISC profile done at work. And what happened with it? Well, I just chucked it in a drawer and never saw it again. I don't really know why we did it. Like, it wasn't really very helpful. I've heard that all the time. I've heard other people saying, oh, well, I had to do one for an interview. And in the interview, they sort of hit me over the head with it as to why my whole personality was wrong because of this profile. And that is not how DISC should be used. It's not what it's intended to be used for. It is intended to give you some awareness of things that you are really good at and things that you might be less good at. Because my profile is mainly I, it does not mean that I can never, ever, ever do detail or structure. It just means it's not my preference. The other thing that I find helpful is that often it'll help you describe yourself in a way that just makes sense. And you just go, oh, now I know why I do all of the things I do. Or it goes, oh, now I know why my partner is that way or says this or is really abrupt and it's not about putting you in a box. So when me and Matt first started dating, we had a little bit of a disagreement. I said to him, do you mind if I do your personality profile? Because I've got a bit of a hunch. And my hunch was correct. He was a C. with at that point there was more S than D, but I said, oh, okay. So it's like fancying Italians and not speaking Italian. Do we have a different way of communicating? When I wrote the message, I wrote it like this, and I think you received it in this way, which wasn't the intention. And he said, oh, yeah, you're right. So, what we could do after that point is when things were, so I like the pretty visual picture. I like the outcome, the shiny stuff. And if you go too much into the details, switch off and get bored. So there can be times when I'm getting all this detail and I'm like, right, okay, remember I'm an I. This is not helpful for me. And then also similarly, he can say, remember I'm a C, I need more detail, or I need it to be slower, or I need to just step back, or I need some space. So having that awareness of what you need for yourself can be really helpful too. And then also from that point, I can choose then not to be offended when he maybe says something that's a little bit short. I go, oh, well, what was that about? But actually, it wasn't about me. It was just about the way he communicates differently. And there's nothing right or wrong. There are some profiles that I get and I go, oh, that's a really nice profile. So like the peacemaker, oh, that's nice. And it is nice. I remember when I did my daughter's profile, and it was interesting. She's a teenager. She was going for a job interview. She was really, really worried about the interview and what she was going to say. And I said, well, let's do your disc profile. So we did her profile. She read it. She was a peacemaker. And she said, oh, mum, it says everything I knew about myself, but I didn't know how to say it. And it just gave her a confidence because we could talk about the things that she saw as weaknesses, how we could make those strengths, just the things that we could change and tweak, and just having that awareness. She smashed her interview. She's doing really, really well in her job. But I think if we hadn't have had that conversation, she would have been very, very stressed, much more so than she was. So this helps us in our relationships, it helps us in our workplaces, but it's not helpful if you get your profile, you put yourself in that profile box and you never do anything with it and you stick it in a drawer and you go, oh, well, I'm just an I. So that's why I never get anything finished. I'm just an I. So that's why I'm not very good at being assertive because I just want to have fun all the time. Oh, I'm just an I. So that's why I talk a lot. And that's what, no, that is not what it's about. It is not. I'm a D. So I can be a dick. I'm a D. I'm dominant. So that's just the way I am. I can be like this. Mm-mm. Just because you're a D does not mean you can be mean to people. It means, okay, so in this situation, I am going to be talking to an S because I'm managing this S person. This S person is going to need me to be a bit less D. They're going to need me to be a bit kinder. They're going to need me to explain things a bit slower. They're going to need, so you see, if you've got this awareness, you can go, right, okay, I know that my normal form is to really drive in there fast and hard, and I want results, and that's what I want. But in actual fact, to get the best out of my employee or my brother or my sister or anybody with these profiles, I'm going to have to adjust how my communication is, because communication is only as ever as good as the response that you get. So if you are getting responses that you don't expect or that you don't like and they're not helpful for you, that's the time when you go, oh, how did I communicate that? Did I communicate that in the best way possible? And generally, you won't have done. So having all of this information is not about putting you in boxes or saying, well, I can only do this because. So now we're going to look a little bit more detail on what the profile gives you. It is a 15-page report. I'm going to show you a tiny bit of mine and explain it to you and explain what makes sense. So my style is an IDS. So in times of stress, I have got 3 profiles in my profile. I've got the I, which is really high. The D comes right up there, and the S is in there too. So I'm a reformer style, which is sociable and friendly, enjoys being a leader. I accomplish tasks through social skills, caring and accepting of others. Concentrate on the task at hand until it is completed and will ask others for help if needed. Now, this is a progress for me. So my profile used to be just I, but I have learned over the last couple of years since running my own business that I have to be more asking of help. So I brought stuff up in my profile because they're the things that I have needed for my business to work and for me just to generally feel a bit better at life. So I'm happy to share credit with the team. I'm being a team player. I love being part of a team. I'm also happy to lead a team as well. So sometimes I'll be in groups, I'll be in social groups and I'll sit back and not say very much. And other times I'll come to the fore. And it depends who else is in the group. So if there's some really strong personalities who clearly want to lead, I'll let them crack on. That's fine. But if there's very quiet people that are more S and C, I will definitely take the lead. And I was in a group the other day and they said, oh, I can really tell that you're not a creative because you are really confident and you're out there. And I said, oh, that's really interesting because I've got an art degree, but I've learned skills that enable me to look at things a bit differently. And I've always enjoyed communicating. Reformers may have difficulty organizing my time. Oh my goodness, do I ever? I find it really, really tough. And I must have social approval. And again, that's something that I am really working on to. So now I've got that awareness, I can start working on it to need that social approval less. And also, meta programs is a completely different thing, but my meta program for whether I know something's good or not, I'm very internally driven. So even if you say all of the positive things in the world to me, if I don't feel that I've done a great job inside, I will not feel that I've done a great job. So even though my profile says I'm very externally motivated by people and social approval, if I don't have my internal approval because of my meta program, I'm still not going to feel very good. So it's not set in stone. It's not that this is for everything in life. I am sensitive to others' feelings and will work towards a favorable environment for everyone. And I do prefer that. Excellent social skills, possess sincere empathy for others. Good motivators. I use directness to solve conflicts, and I'm a passionate person who loves to express thoughts and opinions to others, which is true. So there's a lot of things in this. I went, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense for me. And if you look at the graphs on the other side, you've got your public self, so in public, when I'm out and about, I am all I. It's all about the chatting and the influencing and the just being that fun, sociable person. In times of stress, my core internal stuff, my D comes right up and my S comes up. So I want to go back to the photos at the beginning when I had postnatal depression. I was feeling pretty stressed. I was in a pretty difficult situation then. So my D came up because I wanted to get better. So me going to the doctors and saying, I want to get better, what we're going to do, that D made the doctor feel like I maybe wasn't as bad as things were. So in my time of stress, I will be more direct. I will be more confident to lead things. I will be more driven and determined to take on that role rather than I would in normal times. You can see on all of them, my seat is low. It's on the floor with everything. And then there's my perceived self. So it's how I perceive my typical behavior. And again, it's mostly I, but my D and my S are on the line. So I don't see myself with C at all. Does that mean I can't have C? Does that mean I can't be detailed and conscientious and perfectionist-y? No, of course it doesn't. It just means that sometimes, because my C in this graph is on the floor, I can go down onto the floor and I can pick my C up and I can put it on the table and go, right, Jenny, you need to do your C today. Or I can get help. So if you've got no D in your profile, but you need to manage a staff member who's being difficult, or a family member, or just something that's being really challenging for you, that doesn't mean to say you can't do that. It just means that you might have to say, right, I need to learn some D skills. I need to be more direct in this particular situation. Not forever, just for this situation. It's not about changing yourself. It's about going for this. And over time, you might find that you get more and more D coming in because it becomes more and more natural to do that. Or you may be a C person. So we work with this a lot with our clients who are C's, who need to be more I. They need to be more influencing, more fun, because when you're in business, you need to sell stuff. So if you're C with D, those two profiles are not peoply profiles. They're not bad profiles to have. There is no bad profile, but they're not peoply. If you need to work with people and you need to influence people, which we do because we only sell to people, even if you say I'm selling to business, they're still people. You have to learn, how can I be more I? How can I be more fun? How can I be more outgoing? How can I have this conversation in this certain instance that is going to be of benefit to me? And the S, well, S people are just the nice people there. So, how can I be a bit kinder? How can I take that step back? How can I be stable for people? How can I be less erratic? Like, I find myself, I'm probably a bit of an erratic person. I'm a little bit all over the place sometimes. And bringing in that, in my times of stress, bringing that S up and going, right, we're going to have to calm down now. I'm going to have to take a deep breath because I'm stressed. I'm going to have to find help from people. That just brings that S to the fore. So that's why I've found the profile for myself really interesting. You can have your own profile done. So if you want your own profile done, we can do it. You would fill in, there's a QR code. You can purchase it online. You fill in the information in the questionnaire that is all done digitally. That I'll send you an email. We then get the email back with the report. I will send it to you. It's a 15-page report, really detailed. It tells you how your profile interacts with different profiles, how you can improve your communication skills, tasks that you need to work on, so skills that you might need to work on. And once you have done that report, we will then have a one-to-one session, you and I, for about 90 minutes, and we'll talk through your report and give you some extra hints and tips and tools for how you can enhance your own communication and understand others. So that's all I've got to say for today on disc profiling. I mean, it is a big thing. It's a huge subject. You can do your profile for free online. You'll get a very basic report. It will give you the basics. I had that for quite a while. It served me enough to know where I was and where I could enhance. But as soon as I got the 15-page report, I was like, oh, what is this magic? This is brilliant. So if you would like that report and a session with me, just go onto the QR code or go onto our website, www.qbranch.consulting, and go into the section that says our books and guides. And there is a thing there called Discover Yourself. So I'm going to leave you with today, and remember to have a powerful day, whatever having a powerful day means to you.